Good evening, everybody. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you all to this vibrant and meaningful celebration of Africa Day, which we have tagged Africa's New Day. And in the course of the program, you will understand why we chose to just not call it just Africa Day, but Africa's New Day. We want to thank you for being here to honor the beauty, the strength, the resilience of Africa and Africa's diaspora. Africa Day is a time to pause, to reflect, and a time to celebrate the rich tapestry of African cultures, languages, histories, and identities. It is also a day to reaffirm our commitment to unity, to the progress and the justice, not just for ourselves, but for the generations to come. And that's truly important. This reminds us of how far we've come and how much further we have to go. Whether through our art, our music, or our stories, what we are aiming to do here this evening is to continue to shape the world in a powerful and positive way, as Africa has been known to do for decades. So as we kick off tonight's program, let us with joy in our hearts, pride in our roots, and hope for the future. Believe that this celebration will ignite new ideas, forge deeper connections, and inspire us all to keep pushing boundaries.
What is Africa? Is it the wildlife, the beautiful coasts, thriving cities? It is more than that. It is the people. Our 55 countries have many things in common. Our cultures bind us together. They give us strength and identity. They make us proud. By sharing our knowledge and working together, we're building a new Africa that's driven by investments, by game-changing infrastructure projects, and using transformative technology to change the way we live, work, and conduct business. Using our largest natural resource, our vast arable land, we are making advances in agriculture, developing new industries, creating jobs, and improving livelihoods. Together, we are moving forward on economic integration. By consolidating Africa's significant internal market to foster trade within the continent and with the world, Africa is open for business. We are building the Africa we want. So, what is the continent of the future? The answer is Africa.
Let us put our hands together and welcome Pastor Olivia Joseph-Aluko as she speaks to us on brain drain or brain gain. Pastor Olivia, you're welcome. You have the floor.
Right. Good evening. Thank you, Madam Halsey. I want to thank Pastor Tokunbo for inviting me to join this, and good evening for my co-presenters. I'm just here to learn, just like everyone, and happy Africa Day. Before I go ahead, I'd let you know why are we having the 25th of Africa. It's actually very, very instructive, because that was the day that that the Organization for African Unity, now the African Union, was founded. You know, the roots of that foundation is to say bye-bye to colonization, bye-bye to the cruelty they were getting from other Europeans, and bye-bye to slave trade. But then as we go on and as we listen to other panelists, we'll find out whether we've really said bye-bye. Now, because I've been given just 10 minutes, and please, when I have 2 minutes, I don't know whether there is a bell or somewhere, so we don't talk too much. So what I've decided to do is just to jot down my points and just read through it. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
I can.
Okay,
I can.
well, thank
hear
very
you.
much.
Yeah.
Now, do you know that as of January 2025, that Africa is projected to be the second fastest growing continent in the whole wide world? Anyone that is hearing this will be disillusioned. No, if that's the case, why are people going on boats? Why are people traveling? Hang on a moment. The African Development Bank actually said that last year, Africa's growth moved by 3.7%. Where are we now? We're in May, but they said now we've got about 4.3% of movement. But then someone may ask, if that is the case, if Africa has all these projections and we have all this positivity, why are we having this brain drain? And let's go on. Brain drain, it's the emigration of skilled and talented individuals from a country. And it's a significant concern for many Africans, as I would say. Because brain drain, as it were, it just occurs when you find out that the youths especially, a lot of professionals, they just move. And so when they move, you find out that they go to universities in Nigeria, or they've gained some experience, and they take all those experiences back to different nations, Germany, UK, Canada, mention everywhere that they've gone. So before we look at what it is, I would also like us to look at the root causes, because the root causes is not just one. Some may say economic, but some don't move because of economy. In fact, they have all the money, but they just wanted to better themselves, maybe go back and give back to their countries. Now, but the most common thing for a lot of people, why there's brain drain, especially among doctors, nurses, is because of the economic factor. Would you believe that about 500 nurses at one point in time were actually listed every month leaving Ghana, that they had to put an halt to it? I don't know if anyone heard about that news at one point in time. So you can imagine if 500 nurses, we're not even talking about doctors now, 500 nurses every month leaving Ghana to go to other places. You can imagine when people need nurses, would they find any? Now, let's continue. Another thing that we want to look at is in the last 2 years, where, I don't know, some of us are from Nigeria, and we've heard about the Japa, and even Pastor Talks has used it as an advice, the Japa syndrome. And the Japa, it's like, people that are just living in droves. I don't know if anyone remembers that between the late 80s and the 90s, I don't think it was before the 90s. Do you remember this advert, Andrew, I'm checking out? If anyone remembers 80 years, I'm checking out, no light, no what, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of us graduated and people started moving. And then we created our own colonies in the different areas that we moved to. Those that moved to Maryland in the US, their own colonies. When I mean colonies, I'm talking about the diaspora community, the UK. So you find out that, you look at it, all your primary school children are there because we've created a brain drain. We've taken all the education that we have learned from our respective countries. We've brought that abroad for their own gain. They gain through the taxes and the monies that we paying it. In fact, some people will say, I remember, if anyone has had, Charlie, that is all this is the Queen's money. And they said, well, once you earn that Queen money, you just circulate it within UK. You can't even do anything much with it. Now, political and social instability is one of the factors of brain drain. Some people, a lot of unrest, as we see in Congo, as we see in Chad, you just find that some even go as refugees due to all these wars and conflicts that are coming. And even in Nigeria alone, you find out that, like I said, there's this mentality that people that move out abroad are poor. No, not all of them are poor. In fact, if you're poor, you may not be able to afford a ticket or know what to do. But you find out the state of insecurity, has caused a lot of people to move in because of the rich between the divide and the poor. So you find out that you have a car, you're taking your children to school, children get kidnapped because maybe you you put your child in a nice private school, somebody gets jealous, and all these things happen. So people actually move away. Now, I could go on and talking about brain drain, because what we want to know is that is there a paucity, to these movements? And I would say yes. One of it, was mentioned at the early stage when Madam Mercy talks about our creative abilities that we all have. It's actually so good. And you see, despite all the misconceptions about Africa, you find that there are a lot of things, because bad news, we know bad news fly all over the place. There are a lot of fantastic things that are happening. Back home. One, in the area of technology, there are technology hubs, and a latest report has actually said in Kenya there are a lot of, technology hubs that they are the fastest growing, that are actually growing in the area of technology in Africa. What about cultural, values? When you find out there are diasporas, investing, so much in homes in different areas, setting up NGOs, to help. I can tell you there are about 3 different organizations that I know about that they've taken that initiative, back to their own countries, Nigeria, for example, so that they can look after, children that are experiencing autism and various kinds of disabilities based on what it is that they have gained here. So that gain, they've taken it back to their own countries. Like I said, I am speeding because there's a lot. I only have 10 minutes, not 20 minutes. And also, when we talk about healthcare as well, back to brain drain. The healthcare sectors, we've heard about all these COS scandals and a lot of things going on, especially in West Africa. You've got people in Ghana, you've got people in Nigeria, rushing abroad, and you find out some of them already had work, but they just got fed up because an opportunity came. That's not even their background. Care work, doing all those social care work. Some of them are even bankers, managers. They just said, what, I'm fed up. This is not going anywhere. They're so disillusioned, and rightly so. And they just come over, because they hear that, oh, there's an opening. Of course, the Home Office in UK mentioned an opening at the time, and people just abandoned it, and people just came. They came into the healthcare sector, just like a lot of us came in when I don't know when you remember during the Babangida Abacha clash, a lot of people just rushed in. So we've got different streams of, migration, people moving from one place to the other. But I tell you, like I said, despite all that is going on, see, Nigeria and Africa actually doing well. One, in fashion, we're making our own clothes. I think I actually made a mistake. How dare me? I should have worn my own native. I'm like, oh my God. I should have worn my own native, being Africa. I like that Mandalasin, Kasi Pastor Tux, and some other ones. I could have just worn that one, but I couldn't even change anyone. But salute to, what it is that you have done. So we, built our own fashions, and it's in music. Just started. I remember that when we were younger, you just cannot even go to your parents to tell them that you want to do music. No, you can't say that you want to play football. But you find out that, we've got our, children, the younger generation in different fields. Some of them are even developing apps in Africa, different translation apps to do different things. They are, the youths, are vibrant. They are actually taking over. And if you look at the theme of the African Day for today, the focus basically was about women and youths to see exactly what it is that they are doing. And when I looked at that, I said, actually, women are growing. Let's take, for example, if you find that women are becoming politicians. I don't want to talk about the issues that surround that and how fight is going, but at least if women are getting into the Senate, there are lots of things. If they're usually in the media, you feel a lot of women in the media, but now you hear women talking about politics, wanting to see changes in the nation. And I believe some of us here are writers, and we know about Chimanze. We know that's a queen, of writing that everybody knows in Africa, so we all know that one. We know Ngozi Iweala. So kudos to what the women are doing, kudos to what the youths are doing. So there are lots, they were doing. And guess what? I remember I was telling someone, I said, one day I went to, that was in the 90s. Yeah, it was in the 90s. And I was in Lagos at the time. I went to Christ Chapel. I said that was the first time I met, then I think, was it Benny Hinn? One of them was like, oh, come and sing. Morris said, they used to bombard, a lot of churches at that time. But what is happening? We are the ones now going abroad. You get what I mean? You find out that, we've gotten to the state that Africans are now content, with the preachers they have. They are not like, pressing the buttons to go and get someone in America, to come and lead worship, to come and do that. We do that answer. In fact, we have so many of them to the extent that the gains, of them coming over to America ministering in concerts, whether they are secular or they are gospel. So they are actually, taking over the world. So there are gains. There's a lot to be done, but there are gains. One, we talk about remittances. Is it the monies that diasporas send in? Not just Nigeria, North Africa, South Africa, West Africa, those remittances. Yes, someone may argue that, well, we don't see the fruits, but there are dollars, there are pounds that are going actually into different things back home. Just going to round up that we still have a long way to go. I know this is not a Christian one, but when it comes to looking at Jesus Christ, the church, I will say that, Africa is going well. We may not have gotten it right in a lot of things, but Africa is on the right path. We are not denying God, either in politics or in the economy or in the healthcare sector or in the secular one. You can freely say, God bless you. Pray for someone if you're a medical doctor, a nurse, with a lot of those things that you can't do back in the places where you Japan too, you can easily go. Yeah, that's true. You can easily get on the bus, preach, talk about it, have night videos without looking at the left or on the right. You feel free to say the scriptures without trying to, interpret or anyone quizzing you over that. So there are gains to that. Thank you. Back to you, Madam Mercy.
Thank you very much. That was very, 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 very beautiful. Now it is my pleasure to welcome someone I truly respect, someone I honor very much, an erudite scholar, someone. In fact, he's so brilliant. I don't know how many PhDs he has now. Maybe between the last time I knew and now, he's added like 5. I don't know. He just loves the academic. Please, can you join me to welcome Dr. Sunday Adejoh, who's going to be speaking on The Time Is Now. He's a lecturer, he's a security consultant, he's a research consultant. He works at the Nigerian Defense Academy, he's a consultant to the UN, a consultant to so many organizations. I'll let him tell us about himself. Dr. Adejoh, it is my pleasure to welcome you. Welcome, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. At some point, I got scared whether I was the one you were introducing or there's another Adejoh on this platform. But, well, it's a pleasure to be here to share my thoughts on this very important subject. The time is now. You see, it was Professor Ino Ukaiji who once asserted that for Africa to move forward, the continent must be understood backward. It was Santayana who once said, and I quote, that he that despises history is bound to make mistakes of the past. It therefore means that we can't talk about Africa now without understanding Africa of yesterday, the Africa of now, and the Africa of tomorrow. Because there's a nexus between yesterday, which is history, today, and the future of Africa. Yes, the last speaker wonderfully presented a scenario of the political explanation of where we were, the impact of what colonialism did on Africa, and the giant strides Africans are making today in different spheres of human endeavor. Yes, I want to say that Africa as a continent is a continent at the crossroad, a continent that is competing with legacies of the past, realities of today, and the prospect of tomorrow all are colluding. Africa is a continent that is made up of both the good, the ugly, and the bad. Either ways, this is not peculiar to Africa. There is hardly any continent in the world you want to go to where you do not have both the good, the bad, and the ugly. But the beauty of Africa now is that Africa is a continent that is so beautiful, so rich in cultural heritage. A continent with over 2,000 languages, a continent with about 54 countries, a continent, in my view, one of the most blessed and endowed continents in the universe. It therefore means that Africa is not a continent that can be pushed aside. Africa is not a continent that can be jettisoned. If that were the case, the colonial masters wouldn't have wasted their time and their resources scrambling for Africa. The literature said they were scrambling. They were not just competing, it was a scramble for Africa to tell you about the importance of Africa, not just to them, but even to their survival. It was Andre Gunde Frank in one of his masterpieces titled The Development of Underdevelopment, who argued that it was the underdevelopment of Africa that brought about the development of Europe and America. And how was that made possible? Because these guys came to Africa, exploited our resources, used our resources for their own development. But is that over? Have we overcome the challenges and legacies of colonialism? The fact is that we have not, because what we're experiencing today is colonialism in a new form. It's colonialism in a refurbished form. Yes, Africans have gotten political independence, but economically, we are not independent. No wonder Kwame Nkrumah of blessed memory once said, "Seek ye a political kingdom, and every other thing shall be added unto you." But political kingdom without economic independence is useless. And that's the current reality of the continent of Africa. Yes, we seem to have gotten political independence, but economically, we are subservient. Economically, we do not control the economic fortunes of our country. A continent that is blessed, yet the continent is not industrializing. A continent that is blessed, but yet has presence of multinational corporations, transnational corporations who are milking and exporting the resources of Africa. At peanut, what do Africans get in result? What do we get in return? What is the level of transfer of technology? What is the level of foreign direct investment in Africa? All of this goes to show that there's still a connection between our past and our present and our future. But if we're talking about Africa now, what is germane and pivotal is the fact that we need to begin to rewrite our stories. And I'm glad that we have so many writers here. If we don't tell our stories, if we don't write our stories, others will write it for us and write what is not factual. Write it in such a way that will paint a picture that does not reflect the reality of Africans. Africans and Africa has come of age. The fact is that the whole stereotype and prejudice about Africa is changing, because all over the world you see Africans doing wonderfully well. Africans doing well in sport, Africans doing well in music, Africans doing well in leadership. You talked about Okonjo-Iweala a while ago. That's an African being re-elected or being appointed for a second tenure to head the World Trade Organization. It's not something that's easy to come by. What about the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations? That's an African, Amina Mohamed, doing wonderfully well. Go to universities in Europe and see African students breaking records that will last. The records have been there for 40, 50 years. It goes to tell you that when you put an African side by side, somebody from anywhere in the world, the reality is that the color of our skin is not a determinant of our intellectual capacity, neither is it a determinant of how far we can go. There are just structural issues within the continent that has limited people from being as functional, from being as efficient as they ought to be. And so talking about Africa now, number one is that we must begin to write our stories. Number two, we must recognize and celebrate Africans who are doing exploits all over the world. Universities, Africans are doing exploit. In Europe, how many Africans are determinant of the survival of the medical system in Europe? In fact, if you look at the data and the statistics, you will see the ratio and percentages of Nigerians or Africans who are doctors or who are nurses in Europe and are breaking the records. In fact, the survival, in my view, of the European medical system to a large extent rests on the shoulder of Africans. Yet you want to see Africans as second-class citizens? That's not the reality. It means that as Africans, we need also some degree of reorientation. You can't make us feel inferior. You can't make us feel less important because we have dominated international forums and our leadership skills and capacities have been proven in different parts of the global system. But fundamentally, why are Africans now doing exploit in Europe, in America, and cannot do exploit in Africa? Because, like I said, there are structural issues in Africa. The political behavior of Africans vis-a-vis the leadership style that we have in Africa are limiting factors. A continent where meritocracy is jettisoned for favoritism. These are issues that limits, the degree of exploit Africans can achieve in Africa. Of what good is it that somebody is making wave in Europe and cannot make wave in his own continent? Going forward, therefore, it means that as Africans, part of the things we need to begin to agitate for, part of the calls that we need to begin to do is the need to begin to, we need a social political re-engineering. We need to begin to change and advocate for a change in our political behavior, advocate for change in our governance system. We're in 2025 and already all the political parties are endorsing the president for 2027, barely less than 2 years. These are serious distractions to, delivering the dividends of democracy and good governance. We have become so political to some extent that we are so selfish. I understand that by nature, man is a selfish being, but it's always important to consider the general good rather than individuals' good. If the continent is doing well, everybody will do well. Why is the continent being characterized by conflict? You go to Chad, you go to Niger, you go to Democratic Republic of Congo, you go to Sudan, South Sudan. Everywhere it looks as though conflict has become a peculiar characteristics of the African continent. All of this, you can trace it back to the challenge and failure of leadership. A lot of work needs to be done in terms of leadership, and because of the political behavior of Nigerians, there are people who are in Europe who have interest, who can deliver governance. However, because of the nature of our politics, they are deterred from coming to want to contribute their quota. Africans are becoming mayors in Europe. Africans are becoming councillors. Africans are becoming ministers in foreign lands. It therefore means that if we change our political behavior, if we give room for people who have capacity to deliver, a lot of Africans in diaspora will want to come back home and contribute their quota. I saw that during the reign of Goodluck and some part of Obasanjo's administration, where Africans in diaspora, Nigerians in diaspora, were invited back home to come and take positions of minister to contribute their quota. Today, you will hardly see such a situation. Going forward, Africa of now is an Africa that is so blessed. Is an Africa that is so rich. Is an Africa that is so beautiful. It is Africa that the world cannot do without. Regardless of all the conflict in Africa, Africa has the largest market in the world. No country can survive without Africa. That's why today China is trying to take everywhere in Africa, because they understand the potentials and potentiality of Africa as a continent in terms of market and in terms of the quality of our human resources. We must understand this, and we must celebrate ourselves, and we must show that as Africans, we have all it takes, and we must begin to do some form of advocacy. Advocacy to call on, prevail on the consciences, to conscientize the political class. And I tell you, The biggest challenge of Africa is the political class. And until we begin to change this crop of people, until we begin to increase our advocacy, we will continue to sink down into the ditch, even when we have all that it takes to move Africa forward. I understand that the Europeans will not want to watch their business collapse. But we have seen Africans in the 21st century who are projecting and promoting the interest of Africa. We have seen what is happening, for instance, in Burkina Faso. These things look like things that are not possible, but today we are seeing obviously that these things are possible. If the political class refuse to be stooges, refuse to be instrument in the hands of imperial forces, then the continent will move forward. Africa has come of age, and Africans must take their rightful position as far as the international system is concerned. I'm sure many of us saw the interview between Donald Trump and the president of South Africa. An opportunity to mesmerize, an opportunity to embarrass, an opportunity to demean, an African president. However, we saw immense application of emotional intelligence. We saw immense application of comportment. We saw intelligence. And I tell you, I give it to Ramaphosa for having overcome, the temptation that Donald Trump presented before him. You saw that with Zelensky. Zelensky couldn't even roll it. The meeting went into chaos. But this is an African president who had the comportment, who answered excellently all the questions the media posed to him. And of course, he's being celebrated today. It means that in Africa, we have Africans that can rule the world. We must celebrate ourselves. Sorry, I'm a teacher. The least time I deliver my lecture is 2 hours. Now I have 10 minutes. Unfortunately, I'll just stop. Let me not continue. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Adejoh. Thank you. I was enjoying it so much. I wasn't even looking at the time. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. So now let us welcome Tola Alade as he presents Building the New Mainstream. Tola Alade, you have the floor. Go ahead.
It's not color, it's culture.
The influence of African music on pop culture is immense.
It is your time.
I got to get the dollar.
Like, this is a mad thing. Mad.
But there is no society that has as much wealth culturally.
Culture is the basis of society.
It's a pretty significant jump.
Wake up! Wake up, culture!
Step up, guys. Step up.
Traditional marketing, as people kind of think about it, is much more one-sided. And then we're starting to move into, as an industry, very much that two-sided conversation piece.
There are a wider range of consumers who want to see themselves reflected and are willing to pay money to get these products.
Influencers are really, really good at just connecting with their audiences, and if their product is really good and they love it, people will buy it.
So much data available now that you can really build a way to put a value on that, but I think that's just going to help because now we have a way to actually quantify what that's doing for a business.
It's about affecting people's lives. It's about making a change, making an impact, whether it's worldwide or your major community.
This is our chance to start fresh.
And every Black person should please remember that you were Africans before you became anything else.
Thank you very much, Uncle Togs. By the way, I call him Uncle Togs. Yeah, thank you very much. And also thank you to the previous speaker. My name's Tola Alade. I'm Nigerian by heritage. I'm a dad of 2, and professionally, I'm a 3-time founder. So, I've founded 3 companies and I'm on my 3rd one at the moment. So I chose to talk about building the new mainstream because it actually aligns perfectly well with the direction my company Marmalade is actually heading. But before I jump into that, I've in order to impact society, there are 7 mountains, that you can use, or 7 sorts of key areas that you could strategically use to influence society. There's politics, very similarly to what Dr. Sunday actually mentioned. There's healthcare, there's education, there's media. But personally, I've always been drawn to media, as a way of, telling stories and also, influencing, basically building out the vision I have in my mind for what, for what I see concerning, Africa as well as Africans. My personal mission is always been, to build better perceptions, better products, and better brands for Africa and Africans globally. But something has changed, in the last, I would say in the last couple of years. I've gone from a place of, you know, I've gone from a place of trying to shape perception because I realize, I care less about how the world sees Africa, but more importantly about how Africa sees itself. Historically, in my opinion, Africa has always been a continent that really lacks self-confidence. It takes pride in propping up itself based on, what the global superpowers basically say it is. And, I think that's what's led to some of some of where we've been historically. So for me, it's more about actually trying to build the future of where we need to go as Africans. And, of course, slightly different approach as to what I think that could be, hence the new mainstream. But in terms of my personal mission, Marmalade has been, one of the key sort of expressions of how I think we could go about, creating a better future, for us as well as, for our kids of the future. But what is Marmalade? Marmalade is a venture studio building extraordinary products and brands with a distinct African flavor. And under Marmalade Ventures, I've got Marmalade Collective. And Marmalade Collective was really founded on a very strong belief that Africa's culture and stories are its most valuable asset, in my opinion. And, what we're seeing today, in terms of popular culture, actually is proof that that's one thing we've been able to export successfully all around the globe, either through music or through fashion or through art. Yes, some people might say, it's raw materials, but actually, how have those raw materials benefited the sort of everyday man? Those have almost been extracted from Africa for the benefit of other people. But I think culturally, there's a lot we can do with our cultural power. And I think that could also be the beginning point where we really start to shape society. In terms of Marmalade Collective, over the last 5 years, we've built a community of about 6,000 people, who are people mostly based in the diaspora. We've hosted events, we've, done lots of really, remarkable campaigns as well as partnerships. And all these things are designed to bring African culture to life in a way that resonates in the mainstream. So in a very contemporary way. So we're doing it through content. Content is designed to educate people. And then the events are designed to be experiential, which is you learn about jollof rice, let's say, and then, you could, a month later or, 3 months later, you could attend a supper club where you're actually experiencing jollof rice, for the first time, but you're doing it in community. And there is a fundamental thing. We're not really focused on trying to sell Africa or African culture to Africans. I think the impact is being able to export and to get other cultures, other races, very involved and engaged with African culture. Same way, if you go to Lagos these days, they are obsessed with pasta. They are obsessed with, and again, pasta or, pizzas. These are things Italians or the sort of Italian culture has been able to export successfully to every single corner of the world. So for me, I've sort of moved a little bit more from perception, more to just, yeah, it's more about how we see ourselves, and how we see ourselves would certainly impact how we, treat ourselves, and also how we actually show up, in the global stage. Now, for Africa Day specifically, I've always been, drawn to looking forward, which is, where we're going. And for Marmalade, especially today, we've unveiled a vision of where we're looking to go over the next 10 years, in a very, very tangible way. And the context to where we're going is there are 150 million Africans in the diaspora. If you think of just the size of what that looks like, that's a country. That is a country, but it's a fragmented country. It's a country that doesn't have borders. It doesn't have, but people are connected, either through social media or through different sorts of ways of connecting. So our vision really is to build, what we're calling a digital nation. And that digital nation is going to be a nation that is shaped by culture, not color, which means, there are people from different cultures who resonate so deeply with African culture that they want to be a part of it. And we're starting to see that. I was on my way to church today, and there was a white lady in her car all by herself, and she was listening to one of the popular Afrobeat songs and just really enjoying it in her own space. So you could tell that she's not doing it to perform or to be seen, to be listening to. It's something people are starting to resonate with deeply. So what we want to build is this digital nation that is not defined by color, it's not defined by race, it's not even defined by physical borders, but it's defined more by shared interests, shared values, and that collective sort of love and sort of passion for what it means to be African. So in my opinion, that's the new mainstream, as to where we're looking to go. I think we're starting to see that impact very clearly in music. We're starting to see that, and that is something I think will continue to grow. It's not a trend, it's here to stay. And I think the more technology, influences how we connect, I think that will become stronger and stronger. And yeah, that is my mini talk. I did want to leave everyone with a link where you can read a little bit more about the manifesto I basically put together to kind of define where we're going with this. I'm going to share it in the chat, so please feel free to read through that. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tola. You just dropped a bomb. I'm not even sure you're aware, but you just dropped a bomb. Okay, now we're going to bring in Dr. Ola-Kris. Dr. Ola-Kris is doing so Dr. Ola-Kris, please send me an invitation. I want to come and just visit you and sit in the audience and watch one of your plays and just scream and shout and be very Nigerian. Dr. Ola-Kris is doing some amazing things with theater. He's doing some amazing things in the academia. And he's going to tell us a little bit, I don't know how much you can say in 10 minutes, but just a little bit at the arts and societal transformation. Dr. Ola-Kris, you have the floor. You're welcome.
Thank you, my friends, brothers and sisters. Lady Elsie Ogenakaro, thank you so much. And I think my job has been made a bit easier by the previous speakers. Pastor Olivia spoke about brain drain. And maybe I could start from there. Because I want us not to be alarmists. There's a possibility that we'll become alarmists in the quest for Africa's emancipation, reparation, or whatever. And so, Lady Olivia, well, perhaps the brain drain we see today is another circle of brain drain. Literature, excavations, and oral history and cross-pollination of inter-linguistics of nations continues to reveal that Africans were established in about every corner of the earth. So we've had brain drain before. maybe we should look for another terminology for it. We've been everywhere before, and our migration will continue till the end of the ages. So thank you for bringing that out about brain drain. I just thought I should put the icing on your cake right there. Dr. Adejoh, Sunday, thank you. We shared that Sunday as a name. I think Sundays happen to be special human beings. Thank you so much, Doctor, for that very informative help that you have given to us. The scramble for Africa. I think the scramble will continue as long as Africa continues to unfetteredly expose our wisdom, expose our knowledge, expose our riches, expose our wealth, human resources. That will continue to be scramble for Africa. Africa is replete with gift, talent that seems to be conquering wherever we find ourselves. So this scramble will continue, Dr. Sunday, I suspect, and thank you for that. Tola Alade, I wish I have a title for you. Thank you for that, speaking through the mountains, the self-confidence. And then you spoke about culture. From time to time, you would delve into culture back and forth. And it's so exciting to know that to go forward as Africans, we cannot be divorced from our cultures. Let me just take a detour here before my minute expires. Africans have always had agency in its ways, culture and tradition, cosmology and worldview. I keep telling people that I am a good shepherd. I was a good sheep to my mentors who pastored me, not necessarily because of the preachment and the teachings, but because of the way I was raised in a Yoruba way. I was raised by a Shekiri mother and a Yoruba father. And the ways of the Yorubas, the ways of my people prepared me to be a good pastor, to be a good sheep. And I seem to, these days, eulogize those preparations that my culture and tradition gave to me. Let me take one. My place in South Africa has been excavating the cultures and the traditions and the ways of life of our people here. I just came back from an Africa Day celebration where I led 30 of my students to go and present my latest play. It's called The Parcel of Death. I was commissioned by the university to write that play as a 50-year commemoration of the tragic killing of Abraham Tiro, who was one of the freedom fighters who was assassinated by a letter bomb in Gaborone, Botswana. The play was premiered last year, September 13th. The families of Tiro himself, all of their families, close to 30, were present at the premiere at our university. And it was a very, very auspicious day. Now, let's go back to me saying we mustn't become alarmist. We must just go back to the ways of our ancestors, the ways of our culture and traditions of Africa, and see how to address and deal with this issue that is confronting Africa. Yes, I'm speaking of on role of arts and social transformation in Africa. So this adage of the Yorubas, it says, Tiroba lologun odun, ijo kan ṣoṣo lotito aba. For me, I think it speaks of the place of patience and retributive and reparative justice to the continent. Yes, it could be to individual situations and scenarios, but to the continent. Let's be patient. We have been patient for many years, over 400 years. Historians tell us, and the Bible even tells us. Let the lie continues. One day, the truth will come out, and many excavations now of the history of our ancestors are revealing the truth of the world, the truth of the world, the truth that have been covered, that have been glossed over are coming out. The truth have been traveling for how many years now? Maybe half, half, half a millennia, but the truth is coming out. One day, the truth comes out. One day, why can't we refine our gold on this continent? One day, the truth is coming out. So my play is revealing some of these aspects of African cosmology, our proverbs, our ways of life as agency to solve our problems. And I love this Tiroba Lologun Odu. I love it so much. You know, the Bible says, write the vision, make it plain. Though it tarries, someday, it looks like Tiroba Lologun Odu, though it tarries. One day, wait for it, it will speak. I think the giantness of Africa will speak in a matter of one day. One day could be 10 years, could be 50 years, could even be 100 years. But though it tarries, it will speak. Another one that I love so much, I spoke at a men's conference recently at our province here. The issue of gender relations is beginning to become an issue, maybe globally, but of course, in my country of sojourn, it's becoming an issue. And we know the feminism movement. And so I brought in the African cosmology, the African way of looking at life. The Yorubas will say, "Ọkùnrin réjò, obìnrin péjò, kéjò ṣáà má ti sálọ." In other words, in African cosmology, in African culture and tradition, the women have their strong place also in society. The women have been agents of change, agents of transformation, agents of justice in Africa. There's no Johnny just come that must come from the West to come and teach Africa about gender relations. Otherwise, we'll just be putting one gender against another. Ọkùnrin réjò, obìnrin péjò, kéjò ṣáà má ti sálọ. It says the man sees the problem, the snake, the woman solves the problem, kills the snake. Bottom line, the snake must not escape. We have seen problems that men create or men see, and we've seen that women solve those problems. Experience and live occasions are replete with all of these things. So women have always been agents of transformation and change in our society. We do not need anyone to come around to begin to speak to us about feminism, the nomenclature, and disturbing discussions about gender relations. Ọkùnrin réjò, obìnrin péjò. Bottom line, kéjò ṣáà má ti sálọ. The man sees the snake. The man observes the trouble, locates the trouble. Women have been solving problems in Africa for centuries. Look at that. It's so beautiful to know that women are custodians of culture in our society. Women are custodians of hope in our society. During the COVID, presidents that were women did so much. I almost would say more than presidents that were men. All right? The Yorubas will say again, and these are the items that I'm bringing into my plays, into my work, so that we can solve problems in society, transforming the society. The other one that I love also is Okuinu Lafi Betita. Wow. The Yorubas will say the inner man, the strength within, is used for solving problems external. I wrote a paper on Adejoh Atimu of the Yorubas and how food, the role that food plays in the society. So the Yoruba says, "Okuinu lafi betita," and I love it when the Bible says, "Greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world." So in this case, we talk about food, okuinu. So the place of food, there have never been poverty of food in Africa. This looks like it's been engineered in particular ways. Subsistence farming have been ways by which Africa feeds itself. But now we see one man becoming the farmer that produces maize for the whole nation. One man produces okra for the whole nation. It wasn't like that because Okuinu, every family was subsistently engaged in farming. But the West comes and they changes a lot. They change a lot of things, especially in my country of domicile here. Look at that. Okuinu lafi gbe ti ita. And now, when the issue of Abraham Tiro came out, I went through catalogs of history and archives. I went to the library to make research about this gentleman who was one of the leaders in Black consciousness and his activism. Now, when I began to raise my own, I call them my kids now, my students, when I began to raise them and prepare for this play, especially when we were reading it, Tiro was martyred, was killed by Pasu bomb when he was age 28. And I told them, you have ancestors who are erudite, intelligent, people who stood against the apartheid regime, people who fought the regime to a standstill until he was chased, rusticated from this university, apparently my university here. And that's why the Tiro story is very special to us. And when we went through the script and my students were going through the readings of the script, they began to understand the effort of freedom fighters. I'm delivering a paper in Nigeria later this year on how we can use drama to eulogize and establish the place of African heroes. And this is one way that we can really transform our society in nucleus form and on a larger scale. The role of arts and social transformation. Art is one of the ways, like the issue of gender-based violence. I wrote a play that was published by Sophos Books. In fact, Sophos Books is publishing, almost releasing another one, The Prince of Sovenga. The Prince of Sovenga catalogs the giants of the struggle, the leaders, the kings. So it established the place of monarchical system in our African culture, how maybe we can look at leadership and look at how our democracy can be re-engineered to suit our own indigenous knowledge systems. I think my time looks like it's up now. So the role of arts and social transformation is a very easy one. When I was dealing with the issue of gender-based violence and I wrote the script Ghost Twerkers, it was a discussion that many people had in hush places with hush voices. And when I raised this issue through my play, it became a national break. And then the play began to travel from province to province. The government began to invite our university to come and present the play. And we have audience reactions, and we write papers on how the audience received the play and how the play is transforming our society here. And I must give kudos to Sophos Books for engineering this. You know, I must confess now, I'm not sure if I've discussed this with Sophos Books chairman, that I was wondering, would this man publish this secular book? You know, we as believers, we have a way of secularizing and separating the secular from the spiritual. To me, it seems like there is no separation in both of them. My class, for example, has become my pulpit, my church, if you would, and transformations are happening in my class. Quote and unquote deliverances are happening in my class. And so drama for me has become something extraordinary. I'm beginning to develop even much more paper that looks at how deep people can be transformed. For example, my students rarely go for therapy because my classes, the rehearsals, the performances, goodness me, have become therapeutic for my students. This is challenging to me. And so when Sophos Books agreed to publish this play, it was humbling to me. And I think it's the beginning of bodies who hitherto have been Christianized to cross over to what is secular and solve problems that avails in secular quote and unquote environments. Look at what Brother Tola is doing in what we could call secular environment. Look at what Dr. Adejoh is doing in what we could call a secular environment. Look at what Lady Olivia is doing too as an attorney in a secular environment. So I believe for Africa, we're in the place of Otito now. The truth is coming out from tiny corners, some Burkina Faso corner. The truth is coming out now that the way forward for the entire race of human being is backward to indigenous knowledge system of Africa. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I hope I have made a little sense. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ola-Kris. You know you have made a lot of sense, a whole lot of sense. And now I think it's time to bring on Pastor Tokunbo Emmanuel. Let him come and shift us. Let him come and tell us how to discover our shift. Okay, he's a shifter. I told you, he's a shifter. He's a shifter of people, situations, books, and things.
Thank you, my dear friend and partner in crime. Wow. I'm so glad that we obeyed. We followed the prompt to have this meeting and to acknowledge not just our history, but also to begin to proclaim our destiny as a continent. And I've been so much impacted by everyone who has spoken. Thank you, Dr. Sunday, for the very last minute, for honoring our invitation. And yeah, I could just sit down and continue to, I will probably want to be in one of those 3-hour lectures one of these days. Thank you so much. And of course, Pastor Olivia, you're creating so many waves in your space, in the academia space, passionate about migration. You've had the privilege of publishing some of your books, and that's such a blessing. And Tola, wow, I love what you're doing. I love your spirit. I love the spirit of excellence that's on you, and we want to connect. Like Mayoress has already said, well, Elsie, we are part of the nation. We are part of the digital nation, so we are one. And my very own dear Dr. Ola-Kris, my brother from another mother. Nothing can separate us. Thank you so much. Thank you for being a blessing. And you know, it's so great to be surrounded by professors, doctors, people who are doing so many great things. And all I have to come and share today is I'm going to share two stories. One is from scripture. And you're going to see parallels. In fact, Dr. Ola-Kris kind of alluded to some of these parallels. He talked about 400 years of slavery, and it continued. Yeah, you know, you said the proverb. It continued, that lie, that, well, you are slaves. You're going to be slaves forever. You know, when something persists, it seems like, well, when is this thing going to change? But if you look at Israel's history, there was a prophecy about Israel's destiny. And even though you could see that 400 years, that became 430 years in the middle, but one day, just one day as it were. And I believe Africa's day is here. And that's one reason why we are so excited. That's what we have to see it. We cannot just continue looking backwards. We cannot just continue looking even at our present reality and be so discouraged about it. all of the speakers, you can see that they were focused on the positivity, and that is what it should be. We should be so excited about our destiny, about the land that we walk on every day, a land flowing with milk and honey. Okay, yes, there are those who have come to scramble, as it were, but like Tola said, we are going to have a new vision of ourselves, a new awareness of what we are, what we have. And we're going to contribute to the development of Africa. So the future is bright, the future is exciting. So the first story is the story of a man. You can call him as it were, or you can say that he's an inconsequential man. Well, at a point, but later he became a man of consequence. He became a man of significance. And his name is Nehemiah. He was serving as a civil servant, serving the king in diaspora. All right, so this message, all right, if you're in diaspora, but not just diaspora, if you're on the land, this message is for all of us. And what was it the other day? I heard someone say just a few days ago that you should open your Bible to the book of Hanani. The book of Hanani, and everyone was on the book of Hanani. So there was someone who came from Jerusalem. His name was Hanani, and he brought a message about Jerusalem. And this humble civil servant who was just going about his own business heard the story, and he developed a burden. And that burden shifted him. That burden shifted him, and he also was able to shift others, and together they became a mobilized movement. They mobilized people to rebuild the broken walls of Jerusalem. Now, Tola talked about 7 mountains. If we look at Africa, a lot of our walls, as it were, are broken down. Educational walls have crumbled. A lot of walls have crumbled. But Hanani, Nehemiah, that's humble civil servant, got a burden. And the rest is history, because they were able to build the wall. Even in the face of a lot of opposition, they were able to build that wall. And if you read the story, each one had a portion of the wall to build. Each one had a shift, as it were. And that's why I'm saying we have to discover our shift. I'm sure there is something inside of you that is just moving, that is bubbling up. We can see not just the problems, but you can also see the opportunities, and we have to see it. We have to see beyond the present. We have to see even beyond the past. We need to begin to see our destiny. And I can say that just as Nehemiah was able to shift a whole generation, little you, little me, we can shift. We can build a portion of the wall. We can build and contribute to the development of our continent. Now, let me tell you the second story. And this is where the story becomes a bit personal. And I want it to be personal. Well, it's personal for me. And we all have to find our place. That is my message today. We've got to find our place. So, in 2009, I went to a writers' conference. Well, that's what writers do. We go to writers' conferences. But the writers' conference was in America, in the city of Philadelphia. And as I got there and I got to the house of my host, somehow I just realized that my mind was a bit troubled. I didn't even know why my mind was troubled. Something was troubling my mind, and I just wasn't settled. Maybe it was a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. It was actually it's my first time of attending a writers' conference in that continent, in America this time. But I just realized that something was I just wasn't settled, and I was trying to just find out what it was. And after a few hours, I heard a few words, and the words I heard changed the course of my life, changed my view, and something that I wasn't even thinking of settled in my heart and registered. And I heard these words. Now, I am a believer, as you can already know. I heard in my spirit, you're going to take your publishing to Nigeria. Now, I wasn't thinking about this. I wasn't even praying. But I just heard you're going to take your publishing to Nigeria. So this was 2009. I had published my first book in 1989. So this was 20 years after I published my first book as a teenager, third year in university, Obafemi Awolowo University, Great Ife. So you're going to take your publishing to Nigeria, and you will be part of development in Africa. Oh my God! You know what happened? The sense of anticipation, trepidation, not feeling settled, a peace just came upon me, and those words settled on the inside of me. From that time onwards, I can say my focus has been on what God, now that He told me something, and of course, I've begun to understand it even more afterwards, that God has a spotlight on Africa. One, God is interested in the development of Africa. But number three, I have a part to play. Okay, I, as a little Nehemiah, insignificant civil servant, as it were, I have a part. And my calling as a writer and publishing will play a part in Africa. Now, that was the seed thought. A year after that, I came to write this book, The Shift of a Lifetime. And many have acclaimed this book. I mean, I can't even tell you the story, how I got to write it, but there was so much inspiration upon me. I wrote it for 2 months, and it came out. It's like a sociological discussion on the experiences of a whole generation of those who have, those born between 1960 and 1970. And in the 80s, they all, like Olivia said, Andrew checking out. And here we are and by the time I was writing it, those born between 60 and 70 were in their 40s and 50s in diaspora. And it's like, oh my God, where has all the time gone? And that's why I wrote The Shift of a Lifetime, because there is a spotlight on Africa and we all have a part. We've been subjected, so to speak, and let me put it this way, no, we cannot even blame those who we think have subjected us to lives of survival. We need to shake off the bonds of survival. We need to shake off the chains, and we need to embrace significance. Everyone, it doesn't matter where we started from. It doesn't matter for how many years or centuries the chains of slavery has been upon us. We are set free. We can shift from survival to significance. And there was a prophecy in that book that there's going to come a time that many in diaspora are going to find themselves, focusing, not just focusing on Africa, but also bringing the wealth of knowledge and experience into Africa to contribute to development. A few years after that, I wrote this one, Miracle Shift. I'm not going to say a lot about it, but there's been so much. Thank God for the religious community. I'm part of that. But I could say that there's been so much misplacement of priorities. When we talk about development, we've conditioned people to pray for manna, all right, to pray for miracle, whereby we can be producers of miracles. We just need to till the ground. We need to milk the cows and be miracle workers in that sense. It's time to shift from being just consumers to being productive people, not just in the land, but also in diaspora. And that's a book that kind of touched on that. And I'm actually just about to release a new one called Leadership. And this is a very important book because, yes, we need to begin to see a shift in leadership, and it's already happening. And I'm not alluding to just a shift in leadership from the top, from top down, but we need to see grassroots leadership. Everyone embracing the responsibility to be a shift agent, as it were. in their little places. And that's what we want to do. That's what we are actually as a publishing house, Sophos Books. Yes, we see very importantly the need to amplify African voices. We see the need to rewrite history, rewrite our stories. We see the need and the opportunity to spread the message abroad. And I believe that the day has come, the same way that our songs have gone around the world and our culture has gone around the world, our foods, even in that same way, our knowledge and our books is going to go around the world and they're going to be sought after. This is one thing that drives us as a publishing house. This is just our own part in development. And yes, it's our part, but it's a very huge part. It's a very important part. But when you play your part and somebody else plays their part, the wall eventually will be rebuilt. The infrastructures will be raised up again. And this is the new day that personally I see, and I'm sure we are all seeing this new day. I want to be a part of it. You don't look down on yourself. You can do a lot. And let me just end with this. Now, I work with authors across the world, and we've realized that the big players in the publishing space, they have not been Africa friendly. And let me say that the mountains have come down and the valleys have been uplifted. There's now a level playing ground. So we can solve our own problems. We cannot wait. We do not need to wait for Amazon to favor Africa. We can build our own systems. We can write our own stories. We can amplify our own voices. We can distribute globally, not just on the continent, but also globally. And there is an announcement coming soon from Sophos Books, and we are so excited about it. We want to build our own Amazon. We want to see electronic books being read across the continent without any barriers, without the fact that, you have to earn this much before you can get royalties. No, we want to break all those barriers. Why? Because the mountains have been brought down, the valleys have been uplifted, and the glory of the Lord will fill the earth as the waters covers the sea. Find your shift. How can you find your shift? The body is on the inside of you. The gifts, the talents is on the inside of you. Focus. Just find a way to be a blessing to Africa, or find a way of connecting with those. Be part of the movement. Be part of the mobilized people who want to see Africa's world raised up. And I tell you, our children are going to thank us for it. Thank you for listening to my little presentation.
Did I not promise you he was going to shift you? I said he is a shifter. And so it is my extreme pleasure to invite Kolawole Anthony to come and jack us up and tell us to arise and shine. You have the floor, sir. You're welcome.
All right. Thank you very much, Elsie. It's a pleasure. And thanks for having me. And Tokes, thank you so much for making me the last speaker. Oh dear. Well, I mean, it's a pleasure. It's really been fun. I think it's brilliant hearing everything everyone has said. I have basically learned so much. Well, I'll just give a personal story, I think, to kind of give us an idea of how I see where Africa is going and what God's plan is for Africa. So I'm a pastor. But of course, apart from being a pastor, I am also a systems engineer. So I've worked in systems for about 20 years. I've worked in the oil and gas industry for 35 years now. And but then something really interesting happened to me about 5 years ago. So God asked me to, I believe the Holy Spirit led me to start a church here in London. And so we started the Guardians Assembly. Thank you very much, Pastor Tokes, for your help, and Sister Linda. You guys are unbelievable when we started. And after a few months, we were using a particular venue. And then we were told we couldn't use that venue anymore because it was the only venue in my borough for gay marriages and stuff. So we had to move to another venue. And I remember asking one of the wardens, in the building, and I said, "Why did you guys have to move us?" I was really upset. And then this guy said to me, "Now look, he was surprised that we were actually allowed to use that place for church services. Because, I mean, in the donkey's years that building has been used for the arts and stuff, no one has allowed any religious activity in that place." And he said to me, right here in the United Kingdom, we don't like religion because religion has caused so many problems. He talked about the burning of witches at the stakes. He talked about the troubles you had in Northern Ireland. He talked about the transition from the Catholic Church to the Anglican Church. And the more he spoke to me, the more I could feel the pain of the indigents of this country. And I have been a Christian from Ife, for many, many years. And I can see a few of us that we've been born again from a long time. And, I just literally thought, once we started church here, we're going to just have indigents coming in and walking in like they do in Nigeria. And I was really struggling to understand why that wasn't happening. And you can imagine, after all these years in ministry, I was learning for the first time why people were not coming to church. Because they have been hurt by religion. Because right here in this country, you have people that have great-grandparents who were burnt on the stake. You had people who had family that all their possessions were stripped off them because they were Catholic. You have people who have relatives in Northern Ireland that are dying because two sects of Christianity were quarreling. And for the first time in 40-something years, I've been preaching since I was 17 years old. For the very first time, I understood what happened during the slave trade. For the very first time, I realized that slavery was not a design of God. That slavery was a religious activity. And there's a difference between being religious and being a believer in God. So it gave me an answer for the first time to say to people who, when they look at Africa and they look at Christianity, they get angry. When you say you're a Christian and you're an African, some people can't understand how you can be worshiping the white man's religion. But for the first time, I realized that God was not a white man's God. In fact, what the Europeans have been worshiping for 1,000-and-something years was not the same God many of us on this platform have fallen in love with. Because love, God is love. And love does not do slavery. Love does not do pedophilia. Love does not enjoy killing people just for the fun of it. And love does not rape communities and take all their goods without them benefiting anything from it. And for the first time, I began to realize that we need a new model More so now when you look at a country like Nigeria and Africa in general, we are exporting religion across the nations of the earth. And yes, there is a spotlight on Africa. But I think it's important for us as Africans to first of all understand that we need to differentiate between religion and relationship. Because if we don't, we're going to find ourselves repeating the exact same things that have happened across these isles, across Europe, across the Americas. I mean, many of us remember the movie 12 Years a Slave, and you saw that man reading the Bible and beating that woman to smithereens. And for so many years, it confused me because I didn't understand how you could use the Bible to perpetrate such atrocities. Now, being a systems engineer, I believe we need a new model to develop Africa. Because I thought to myself, why did you guys have to come to Africa to take us as slaves? We could have had a better deal. I'm sure if you had said to some of us, hey, I need to take you to Trinidad and Tobago to work on the plantations, and I'll give you £2. A lot of people would have gone willingly. They wouldn't have had to be chained and beaten up. That might have been a good deal for so many because, you know, listen, we need your muscles. We need your strength. We need your culture. We need your tenacity, all the things that you get in Africa, in the African DNA. And what I see today is a propensity for many of us as Africans to almost want to repeat what has been done to us. So you find a lot of bitterness in Africa. You have a lot of young Africans wanting to be Muslims because they can't imagine themselves serving a white God. But the honest truth is, God had nothing to do with the slave trade. That was religion. So the first thing we need to do, I believe, there is a move of God, like Pastor Tokes has mentioned, that is for the past 40 years. You know, there's a massive move of God, you know, in Africa. The first thing we need to do as a continent is to first of all forgive. We need to first of all forgive and understand that, listen, these people were under the influence of demonic forces. All those 400 years that slavery was perpetrated. That's the first thing. The second thing we need to do is we need to develop a model of cooperation, a collaborative model to develop Africa. What does that mean? There are 3.5 or 5.4 million SMEs in the UK alone. I mean, we need the expertise that you find in the diaspora. I've worked in this country as a painter and decorator. I've worked as a bricklayer, you know, and I at times I see the skills in this country. And it's just simply amazing, you know, how the attention to detail that these guys put into their work. And I think all the time, how this will be so useful back in Africa. Now we need, like I remember Dr. Adejoh mentioned, a broken political system. But if we are waiting for the political system in Africa to be rectified and sorted out before Africa is developed, we're going to be waiting forever. I mean, the guys in the music industry have shown us a way out. They've shown us a hack. These guys have gone aside from the politics, and they are basically, I mean, they're causing waves across the whole world. We need to adapt the same thing. Each one of us, we need to start thinking of collaboration, like Sophos Books. Who can you collaborate with here in Europe, in America? How do you create an enabling environment for such persons to benefit from Africa? We can't repeat the mistakes of the past, which is a win-lose game. For Africa to develop, it's got to be a win-win game, which means we start with forgiveness, and we understand that the people in the rest of the world have something to contribute, and then we create systems to ensure that that contribution is beneficial to them. And it's not, oh, our continent. It's all God's land. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. You know what I mean? And I believe that if we can develop these models, now for me, it's still very conceptual, but then hearing Tola's presentation, it's giving me so many ideas. Because just like Elsie highlighted, 150 million people in the diaspora. Just think about it. If those 150 million people can collaborate with people who are indigenes in the diaspora and return to Africa with these people, just think about the speed with which Africa will basically explode. Yeah, I think we need to explore these ideas. I believe, Dr. Chris, I've heard so much about you. It's good to actually see you today. I believe we need to do plays that highlight these kind of collaborations. I believe we need to develop concepts and frameworks, and governance models that will highlight these collaborative win-win frameworks. And I feel if we can do that, then indeed Africa is indeed the next greatest frontier. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Pastor Kolawole Anthony. I'm grateful. Thank you all for joining. A Sunday night, you came from church, you didn't rest much, and then 7:30 p.m. you're here. I'm very grateful.